In an environment where Republicans are favored, I would say that the Oregon race, just like in last time, is going to go for the Republican Party. Hello everyone, welcome back to Luis Discusses Everything. In today's video, we're going to discuss the 2022 gubernatorial elections. In my last forecast, I said that basically the governorships are like not as consequential as, of course, the Senate or the House, right? They don't determine like federal mandated law, but they do determine how the individual laws and constitutions will shape up in each and every one of these individual races. So they're not as important for the national landscape, but they are important in the sense that whatever legislation is passed in each state will basically mean that those laws will have an effect or an indirect or direct effect in coming elections. So, for example, if a state passes abortion rights legislation, like in Texas, and it goes against abortion rights, then you can pretty much assume that they're going to ban it here, but maybe the opposite happens over here. So it does shape local politics, and it will have an indirect effect on national politics. So to a certain extent, it matters who controls the gubernatorial elections in each state. So you're looking at the 538 politics forecast, the one I commonly use for this channel because I think it's vastly superior to other forecast measures. So you can see it's a different scenario than what you see in other races, where you see a lot more, and then in the Senate, right? The Senate elections they tend to be have more of a national effect, right? Are more prone to national headwinds than gubernatorial races, at least in my opinion. For example, in a state like Kansas, you have Democrat Laura Kelly leading in the gubernatorial race, but you would never think the same of this race on the Senate level, right? In the state of Georgia, you have Brian Kemp with a high percentage chance of winning, but in the Senate race is a toss-up. So it's an interesting scenario, to say the least. Most of these races are not as competitive, right? But that means that it leads us to races that are much more competitive, right? In other words, I'm going to narrow it down to races that are, in fact, very competitive, and really bogs down to Oregon, Nevada, Wisconsin, and Arizona. And to a certain extent, I would say Kansas as well. But I think these initial four are the ones that we need to look out for. In the case of Oregon, you have Democrat Tina Kotek running against Christine Drazak. But you also have an independent and a third candidate and fourth candidate in the race, right? So that is definitely taken away from either candidate getting to 50%, but more likely is taken away from the Democrat from winning the race. So this is a tricky one. This is a race where normally you would not see the Republican even with a remote chance of winning, but because there are so many other candidates in the race, it's hard to tell. In an environment where Republicans are favored, I would say that the Oregon race, just like in last time, is going to go for the Republican Party just because of the dynamics that are involved. In the race, the other competitive race that's on the books is the Nevada race. You have Joe Lombardo versus Steve Sisolak, the Democrat. And in this case, 538 gives it a higher percentage chance of victory. But again, given the landscape, I still give this one to the Republican, but I think by a smaller margin than what you would assume in other competitive races, so by a tilt margin, the same as in Oregon. In the race of Arizona, Kari Lake versus Katie Hobbs, I would say that in this case, Carrie Lake just has a wider advantage. Katie Hobbs has refused to debate, and it's just not as popular as Carrie Lake right now. She has the momentum in a Republican-leaning year, so this is an easier one to categorize. I still give it by a tilt margin because it's just so much more competitive in this regard than in other moments. Those are the last three races that I'm going to categorize for the Republican Party. The other ones, such as the Kansas race, I think Laura Kelly's just running such a good campaign in a state such as this. Abortion is much more salient in this state precisely because it's going to be, there was just a recent ballot measure in the state. So I think in this case, Kansas will go to the Democratic Party, certainly. In the case, that leaves us with Wisconsin, which is one that I forgot to mention earlier, but here it is. You have kind of like a toss-up race with incumbent Tony Evers running for his re-election against Tim Michaels, and a third-party candidate, Joan Els Belginger. Sorry for the pronunciation. And in this race, even though it's a toss-up, Republican-leaning year, I still give it to the Democrats in this case. The incumbency advantage is too much to overcome, I think, in this race. A similar case as in Michigan. This gives 28 of the gubernatorial races towards the Republican Party and 22 to the Democrats, giving Republicans more control over gubernatorial races across the country than Democrats. So thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, share this video with your friends. Let me know in the comments which party do you think is going to control all these competitive races. You may disagree with me. Please disagree with me. Let me know in the comments. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.